Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. I got a brand new retrospective starting today that I'm calling Gaming Through the 90s. We're going to be taking a look at what I would consider the most influential and important game for every year 1990 all the way through 1999. Because to say the 90s were a wild decade for gaming would be an understatement. We started off the decade with Super Mario World and we would close it out with the Dreamcast being in full force. The 90s just saw so much evolution in gaming, so that's what the retrospective is going to be about. One game per year, and obviously if you can't tell already, we're starting it off with Super Mario World. And the reason I chose this over any other game in the 1990 range is because this basically personified what the new 16-bit generation was going to be doing and how it was going to be improving on the graphical capabilities of gaming. Add to the fact that this is just what I would consider an absolutely perfect game, no notes on the improvement, and you just have a recipe for something that when you played it in 1990, it just absolutely hit. I still remember the first time I saw Super Mario World in action. It was at the mall at Sears on a kiosk on a demo unit. I absolutely fell in love, had to have it, and definitely got it that Christmas. But this is just, again, so indicative of what the 90s were going to become. Mario was in full force as a cultural icon. We had so many different games from Nintendo, but when this came out, it really promised the new generation was here. We'd be seeing some absolute insane games in the 16-bit era. And for a game that is so early in the Super Nintendo's life cycle, this thing just fires on all cylinders. The platforming, the level design, the new characters that were introduced, all of the music, so much of what Mario still is today was basically formulated for Super Mario World. All of the new power-ups, the new features, this thing was just absolutely chock full of different environmental effects, different concepts, and different secret exits, so when you realized the game had this metagame underneath it, became that much more interesting. And of course you can't talk enough about how Yoshi became a playable character, or at least a mount in this situation, and how many different memes there are of sacrificing the Yoshi over a pit even if you don't have to. The main takeaway of something like Super Mario World in 1990 is just how much it informed gaming for generations to come. This game today is still talked about, and there's still probably more ROM hacks for this game than anything else around. And honestly, these secret exits when you first discover them are amazing, and once you realize you can basically cheese the game and kind of play it how you want and get out for some of these exits without actually playing the game correctly, it's just that much more fun. A well-timed bounce and a Yoshi sacrifice there, and you're right out into the secret area without ever having gone to that Switch Palace. And as we play the second stage in the game, if you played this in 1990, you would absolutely have this memory branded into your brain. This was just something we had never seen before. We were still playing NES, and even if I was born in the mid-80s, and the 90s is definitely my generation as far as when I grew up, this is still one of my earliest gaming memories and kind of how I really got my start in gaming. But you tell me in the comments down below, were you alive when this game came out and playing games, or did you come to it later? The best part about Super Mario World though is it doesn't matter what year you played it, this game is as good in 2025 as it was in 1990. It is not aged today, and that's just down to really intelligent game design, some amazing levels of music, and the fact that 16-bit 2D graphics just aged better than the first generation of 3D we got with Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, and Nintendo 64. So you can play a game like this today and it still feels fresh and new, and if this game came out the day you're watching this video somehow, it would absolutely still be reviewed as one of the best games of all time, and that's what it truly is. Super Mario World is a masterclass in 2D platforming, and I feel like this is still some of the best stuff Nintendo's ever done. While they still make incredible games and incredible Mario games, Super Mario World still hits in a way that I feel like no other Nintendo Mario game ever has or ever will. And like I said, it's just such a deep game. All of the different mechanics, the Star Road, the different keys you can obtain to get secret exits, having secret exits within secret levels, there's such a metagame going on underneath this. You could basically play the game from start to finish and still not see about 40% of what it has to offer. But the other thing is this game has so many iconic tracks that are still remixed in Nintendo and Mario games today. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll be back talking more about 1990 and the overall Mario history. But enjoy because this is iconic. I mean, just two little bits of musical element there that you probably have heard 1,000 times in your life, and they still sound as good today as they ever did the day of release. And all of the additional mechanics in this game just make it feel so much fresher than Super Mario Bros. 3, which is also an awesome game. But when you saw parallax scrolling, when you saw these gigantic sprites coming down, when you saw a little bit of the rotational effect, those were things that we had never seen before unless you were in an arcade. Super Nintendo really did feel like in some ways a home console could rival some of the stuff that we saw in arcades, and the different ways you would play the bosses, the different mechanics in each level, the different moveset that Mario had, the spin jump. It was also indicative of a bigger, brighter, bolder Super Mario experience that only Super Nintendo could pull off. Like this Boo House here being one of the secret levels, having a secret exit inside of it. There was just so many different layers for exploration here, and while Super Mario Bros. 3 definitely had a lot of different areas to explore with all of the warp whistles you could find, Super Mario World just felt like that game on absolute steroids, graphically, music-wise, gameplay-wise, and just content. And of course Nintendo would go on to make Yoshi's Island, which I consider the second best 2D Mario platformer of all time, but that same impact wouldn't be felt compared to Super Mario World. Yoshi's Island was an incredible game using the Super FX 2 chip, and it was absolutely impressive, but this was the real wow factor. The first time you played a 16-bit Mario game, it just hit in a way that no other game after that would happen, unless maybe you consider Super Mario 64, which may or may not be obviously showing up on this series. But you'll see here, this game really does make you think, which door do you want to take? You can grab the P-switch here and jump on it, and because we got those coins, we have access to another door which will bring us out the back door of Boo's Castle. And I love that it shows you the end of the game. Bowser's Castle here with that bright neon sign lighting up the sky. It is just wild. You know the adventure that is in store for you. You just don't ever know how you're going to get down there, at least not in the first instance. And just like any other Mario game, there's so many different warps and secret areas. You can play every single level and every secret level in the game and beat it that way, or you can basically skip half the game, try to do a speed run just using some of the secrets and move from there. But so many familiar things were still brought back. Obviously we still have swimming levels, stuff that we would see in earlier Mario games, but here it just hits a little bit different. I would say the overall physics engine in Super Mario World is my favorite version of Mario, and I think that's why you still see all of these Kaizo ROM hacks and all of these speed runs. There's just something about the motion and feel of Mario and how he controls in this game that has always felt absolutely perfect, even being able to speed up when you have items in your hand and having to kind of drop them to progress moving on. It is just such a vibe, and that's really what this game is. Every single time you pick it up and play it, it just hits in the same manner that it did before. This is the type of game that every couple of years I will sit down with my wife, who grew up with this and loves it as well, and just play through it one more time, and every time we do, it's as good as it ever was. And that is why I've chosen this game for 1990. But leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think the most influential and important game of 1990 really is, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different picks out there. This is a very hard list to make, winnowing it down to just one game per year for a 10-game series, but Super Mario World was definitely one that was an easier choice for me to make. And as we move on further into the game, the difficulty definitely can ramp up here, and when you get to the Star World and the Special Worlds, you're definitely going to have to challenge yourself to get better at this game, and I feel like that's really where the entire Kaizo Mario World ROM hack community comes from. Some of the stages that are locked behind a lot of secrets in this game are just absolutely cruel in the best ways possible, and people had nostalgia for that ultra challenging Mario style of gameplay, and they decided, why not just make some ROM hacks and make it even harder. And now today, if you take a look at games that have fan patches and ROM hacks for them, Super Mario World is definitely leading the charge as the game that's been modified the most. But one more soundtrack sample. I've loved this one. 30 seconds and I'll be right back. Such a dramatic track, and I do love the Super Nintendo sound hardware, that kind of reverb bassiness coming out of the back of it. And of course, you're going to have to fight all of the different Koopalings here, some of the characters that have been introduced throughout the entirety of the Super Mario franchise. But really, so much of every game that would come after this takes inspiration from Super Mario World. So many different enemies were first introduced here, so many different characters and concepts got their start in Super Mario World. And while Super Mario Bros. 3 was an absolutely awesome game on the NES, it really was stretching at the graphical and hardware capabilities of that system and what it could actually bring to you. So seeing the Super Nintendo on store shelves in 1990, playing a demo kiosk, then playing this game at a friend's house until I got a console and copy of the game for Christmas is just something I absolutely remember. Everything Mario was awesome in 1990. There were so many different cartoons, comic books, entertainment properties, all the NES games. Mario really had become a cultural phenomenon by 1990, and it shows here in Super Mario World. All of the different marketing efforts for this game just basically made it feel like it was going to be the next biggest thing since sliced bread, and 100% it was exactly that. This game just basically set the tone for what Mario and Nintendo would become over the intervening 35 years since this game came out, and it is wild to think this game is now 35 years old as of the recording of this voiceover, and it's still every bit as good today as it was 35 years ago, and I'd say even better because the fan community has made so many different variants of this game. You could play Super Mario World and different fan ROM versions of it every single day until the end of time and probably not see everything, and you know a game is popular when it has that many fan games made for it. But as far as 1990 is concerned, Super Mario World is the game, more so than anything else, that is the most influential and important game of that year. But short of that, I will be back next week with 1991. I'll have videos throughout the week as well, but I can't state enough just how important of a game this was when it came out and how good it still is. Bye-bye.